Hello, I'm Jim Miller. I'm here with Ron Bowers and Henry House. The FlipSide starts right now. Welcome to the show. So we have a very unique fundraiser coming up in Washington County, and it's to benefit the Boys and Girls Club of Washington County. It's explained to me that somebody's going to rappel down the Alexander House, or a number of people are. And we're fortunate to have with us tonight Craig Campbell, who's on the executive board of Boys and Girls Club, and Melissa Fountain, who's going to be one of our rappellers, right? Yes. Over the edge.
Yes.
So first of all, Craig, talk to us about the Boys and Girls Club. What do you do?
Well, on the executive board, I volunteer my time, and I'm also chair of the Resource Development Committee. So my job is events like this. I work in tandem with the development director, E.J. Fuller, who he's really the brainchild of this. I mean, we were looking for something unique, and we've been going through a lot of different things that were unique to do as a fundraiser that this town hasn't seen before, and I think this one sure fit the bill.
So this was the brainchild of somebody here locally? Yeah,
E.J. Fuller. He is actually what we consider a club kid. He grew up in a Boys and Girls Club, went to Frostburg State. He was a pretty big athlete around this area, and he and I pretty much run that part of the fundraising efforts in the community. And you know, these fundraisers basically support the 4 clubs that we have in this area, and they're in some pretty key neighborhoods too. You know, we have Frederick Manor, Nolan Village, Elgin Station, Pennsylvania Avenue. You know, they're serving hundreds of kids on a daily basis with some pretty important programs. You know, that they're working with these kids every day.
Excellent.
You know, it's kind of unique. You talk about a fundraiser or a funraiser. So I think you're going to have some fun as you raise funds for the Boys and Girls Club. What is your most pressing issue that you have now with the Boys and Girls Club? What would you identify as your major issue? Is it space? What do you need more than anything?
Well, you know, being a 501c3 and a charity, it's you know, it's not like we have a product to sell. You know, other than, you know, it's a social product, and we don't have a better time than now to really help the youth in our community. The Boys and Girls Club does such a wonderful job of that, but yes, we do fall short a lot with funding, and that's why big fundraisers like this are a big deal. And you know, we have programs that address certain social issues that are happening in our community right now and have for many years, just like you know, the current gang activity that's happening in Hagerstown. You know, our programs at the club, like Street Smarts, you know, this is geared towards kids ages 10 to 14 that are very susceptible to gangs, to bullying, or just social cruelty in general. You know, these types of things, we get people from their neighborhoods to come in and talk to them and mentor. We get other people from, you know, from ex-gang members to come in and talk to these kids about the way gangs affected their lives. And, you know, that hard life that they endured, you know, they're able to really get on the kids' level, you know, the street level that these kids are exposed to. And we enable them with those experiences to already know what to expect whenever they are faced with those choices on the street. And there's not really I can't think of any other organization in town that is really addressing that issue to have those kids ready for that situation at that time when they get to make that choice of right or wrong.
Okay, I'm going to follow up with the Go Over the Edge fundraiser. How many people do you have rappelling, and how are you generating funds from people scaling or going down the side of a building?
Yeah, well, I mean, wonderful people like this.
Yeah.
You know, Melissa has been such a great person to work with. and been such a cheerleader for it. And right now we have close to 40 repellers.
Okay.
And
some pretty hefty fundraising goals, and that's where a lot of the money's coming in. I mean, individually, it's $1,000 each. That's our goal.
So that would be
to reach.
40,000 that you said.
If everyone reaches their goal.
Wow.
plus corporate sponsorships.
Okay.
So, you're trying to solicit people to sponsor you for $1,000.
That is exactly correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, everyone, Melissa Fountain.
Well,
Okay.
we have the web address for where they can go to sponsor running at the bottom of the crawl, so they can just jump right from here and
Jump
and go
being
to,
the
well,
key word.
yeah.
And I think,
Jump might be a
No
little
pun
stretched
intended.
there, but yeah, you're right.
and this was a long time in the making, because I remember you pitching this idea quite some time ago about doing this, and there were a lot of requirements, right, to
Yeah.
find the right building.
Yeah, that was. We did a whole building search, and we met with the city several times, and the fire marshal and the building codes people, and making sure that the anchor ports that were that your ropes are tied down securely,
Not to mention
what
the
you're hanging
insurance
on
company. I
to.
bet you met with them too.
Yeah, the insurance company. That's a need-to-know basis kind of thing,
No, I
but
get
yeah.
Interesting.
And what's really interesting is that I heard Craig talk about this event, and I remember I was on a trip in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we were walking downtown, and I came across a street festival, and I looked, and it was the same organization, Over the Edge, and they were hosting an event there. So I kind of got to see, what it looked like and what the repellers were doing, and they were helping a charity in that area raise money. And I took a lot of pictures and I sent them to you because it looked so neat, and it really got the public involved and made it kind of like a festival downtown.
Really was. There's been 1,000 of these events held over the country and internationally. United Kingdom, Hawaii, China. So it's really spread globally. And this organization, Over the Edge, has just the highest grade of safety and security. I think there's been one injury in their time, and that was from somebody got stung by a bee, I think, when they were rappelling. So I think that's the worst.
So
of
are
it.
you at liberty to talk about maybe some of the teams or individuals that might be participating? Obviously, we know Melissa, she's here, but
I'm on a team called Vertical Avengers.
okay.
Consisting of whom?
Just, a couple friends of mine. Kim Bowen's on my team. Terry Shoemaker kind of started the team.
From Smith
But you've
Elliott.
got some businesses putting teams together too, don't you?
Yeah, Randy Scott has been very generous, and he's actually volunteered. The cow mascot will be rappelling at the event. So
wow.
the Chick-fil-A cow, some of the commissioners, Court Meinelschmidt,
Is rappelling?
is rappelling. Todd Snook, I think,
Yes.
is
Greg's
doing it.
brother.
And my team is called Team Rise Up Hagerstown. I thought I'd just try to put a spin on it. That's what we're talking about. It's all about rising up Hagerstown.
Okay.
And we have our team itself has raised over $3,500, and we're still rising up.
But there's still plenty of room to raise more money, right? So people should use
absolutely.
that
Absolutely.
webpage address.
Yes, I mean, if you just Google Over the Edge Hagerstown, Fundraiser Hagerstown, and type in, once you get to the landing page, you type in her name and just support Melissa or whoever else, if you find somebody on that list that you know.
So we're going to talk to Melissa here in a little bit, but before I do that, in terms of why she signed up and what her motivation was, other than supporting obviously a great cause, but talk to me a little bit about some of the programs. So my donation to this fundraiser, I know you've talked about where you support boys and girls. You've talked about the gang piece that you hopefully keep them from getting into the gangs. What other types of programs does Boys and Girls Club offer?
They run the gamut, and I think it's some pretty key points too, because everywhere from STEM, we have a robotics class. We've got athletics, we've got dance, we've got art, we have a step team. And something, these programs that these kids can be involved with at the club and be engaged on a repetitive, nurturing environment, because in a lot of these kids' lives, repetition isn't exactly there. And this really provides solidarity and repetition in these kids' lives, whether it's just a kid who's in pre-med, which I've met kids that are in the North High pre-med program that come there, and I've met kids that are bouncing from one couch to another, every day of the week. And even if it's something like Smart Girls program, Smart Girls focuses on girls 8 to 17 years old, and we pair them up with mentors, or we have local speakers come in, and it really develops healthy attitudes and healthy lifestyles. And so they get to talk with other successful women or other people in the community that can really have a positive impact on them and what they've come through. And then we have Passport to Manhood, which is for the boys. And kind of the same demographic, but we're how to treat a lady, what's fatherhood, what's careers, conflict resolution, self-esteem. And then, of course, there's Power Hour. Power Hour is like everybody goes through Power Hour. You come in, and it's an hour of reading and homework, and you're meeting with the unit directors, and you're going over just educational things academically.
Wow, that's great, Ron.
As you go forward, will there be a place like people can actually come watch? Will there be like the donut drop or something like that? Anything there to get people? Will there be any way to involve people to get money while they're there? And will there be a time to the event that a winning team gets down in a certain amount of time? Is there any competition other than just doing it and raising money?
That's a little bit of pride, I guess whatever team raises the most money. But we start rappelling at 11 a.m.
What day?
On Saturday, April the 6th. So you can come down, check out the rappellers. There'll be street vendors there. We'll have fire trucks, ladder trucks. We've collaborated with the fire and rescue teams, and
Thankfully.
just make it you're gonna have a fire truck there, I guess.
So if somebody gets stuck, you'll have a ladder truck to go up and get them down.
We pretty much have tried to cover every base we can. Yeah.
Interesting.
Now, on scale of fundraisers that you've done in the past, where do you feel this one fits in? Is this going to be your big fundraiser of the year? This is just going to network in with the other fundraisers, or?
Well, we just crossed $10,000 in individual givings. We've crossed $8,000 in corporate givings.
Okay.
And we're on pace right now for hopefully $30,000 to $40,000 from this event. And which, yes, would be one of the larger events that we have during the year. We have steak and burger dinner.
I've been to that several times, actually. That's a great event.
Yeah, and one of our speakers is Ebony Williams, our main speaker this year is Ebony Williams, who grew up as a club kid here and went on to Seton Hall and led their team and their basketball team. And she actually works with the girls at the club on a volunteer basis from time to time. Very influential and such a great story.
Now the steak and burger night, just to put some context, the adults eat the burgers, the kids eat the steaks. Right?
That's exactly right. Okay. And usually what happens is they ask us where the chicken tenders are. So it's we try to. One of my situations. If I could share the story,
sure.
One of the first times I started with Steak and Burger, I sat at a table, and each one of the, every table that's sponsored has 2 or 3 club kids that come in, and you get to sit and chance to talk with them, and we're listening to the Youth of the Year. Every year we get a Youth of the Year speaker, and one that really exemplifies what the Boys and Girls Club stands for. And I'm sitting next to a girl, and she's in 11th grade, and she's telling me her story about she goes to North High. I was like, I went to North High, I graduated in '96, and she says, I'm in pre-med, and she had a little bit of an accent. She was an immigrant, and I said, where do you live? And she said she's over in I believe it was Nolan Village, I think is where she lived, and her little brother was sitting there with her, and I said, so you're in pre-med? I was like, you go to North, and I said, why aren't you up there at Youth of the Year? She's like, I just don't have time. She goes, I'm doing pre-med, I work a job, and I'm in school, and I didn't have time for these types of things. So, just because you wasn't Youth of the Year doesn't mean there's not dozens and dozens of other Youth of the Years available there. And it's just a great story of these kids that we're helping that live in, certain places that can really be, get a hand up in life.
That's great. So Melissa, I got to ask, What made you decide? And I know you get involved in a lot of different things in our community for various different nonprofits, but what drew you to this one?
This was very unique. So I like to volunteer just my time and resources if I have it. But you know, when Craig first brought this up, I don't know, it's been over just almost 2 years ago, probably.
Yeah, probably a year and a half
It
at
just
least.
sounded really unique, and then it kind of, while you guys got all the preparations and permits and talked to everyone, it kind of sat on the shelf for a while. And then when they really started pushing it, I'm like, that is such a unique event, and it's got a great cause. I went to school with EJ, so I kind of feel like, you know, we're like North High buddies, so I kind of owed him one. But no, it's exciting, and honestly, it's also a great way to bring people downtown, just to see the downtown area, to see people rappelling from the top of the Alexander House. I mean, really, who ever heard of that?
So there's a lot of windows in the Alexander House.
Well, I'm going to tell you, one of my sponsors is actually a volunteer for Maryland Theater, and he lives in the Alexander
That's
House.
got to be Randy.
And that's Randy, and he told me, I will sponsor you. He said, if you wave to me as you go down. And I said, if you have a cup of coffee waiting, you know, just hand it out and we'll just take it on down.
Oh, that's crazy. So is there anything, are you nervous at all about this? I mean, I know they have zero accidents other than a bee sting, but I got to tell you, that would scare me to death. And I'm not one to like heights. I can do daring things, but not in the heights venue. Does it scare you at all?
It doesn't scare me. I mean, I've zip-lined before, I've been parasailing, things like that. The only thing that I was thinking about is, because when you rappel, you come off the building and then you kind of come back to the building and push yourself off. And I keep
Right.
thining, what if I hit
Hit a
Randy's window and I'm in Randy's living room? And
It makes the coffee that much easier to get.
Yeah, we're gonna. You should probably go slow.
Yeah.
Take your time. You know, but yeah, there's pretty direct path that you should want to stay on there.
That you should.
yes.
Yeah, no swaying, no freaking out. Just,
Oh my,
just straight
okay.
down.
Rain or shine event?
If it's too windy or
Okay.
too rainy, then the following day, the 7th,
All right.
will be the makeup date.
Now, will you stream this on like Facebook Live or something? So,
We've got a few things that we're looking at. Facebook
Okay.
Live's definitely one. Fred Frederick from Frederick Seibert, you know, his team over there we talked about getting some live drone footage from them.
Ooh,
Okay.
He sponsored a repeller. Just a wonderful young lady with a great heart will be rappelling down in representation of FSA, and we've got plenty of people coming out of the woodwork wanting to help, and we feel very blessed.
Well, that's great.
Melissa, you going to wear a costume of any kind?
The cow's already taken. I thought of that. We'll see.
All right, so
Sure.
I'm going to take
Yeah.
executive producer privilege, and I'm just going to ask one question. I'm sure most of our audience knows that you recently joined the staff of the Maryland Theater.
Yes.
Which is wonderful. There's a lot going on there. Give me the 30-second overview.
Well, sure. So when Maryland Theater decided to build this Performing Arts Center, they knew that was a project, once it was finished, with all the new event facilities, that was something that they were going to need someone to come in and help them with. So that is what I'll be doing. Not only will I be bringing in different organizations to rent out like the ballroom or the grand lobby for fundraisers or holiday parties. We're also creating companion events for existing events that we're hosting in the auditorium. So for example, in November we have a one-woman off-Broadway show, Sex in the City, so we're going to have a ladies' brunch up in the ballroom with, of course, some Cosmos and mimosas involved. So fun things like that. And right now we're really kind of highlighting some of those event spaces, because when you drive by the construction site now, you can really get a feel for the space now. The rooms are getting framed out. We have that top floor on of the ballroom. And so it's really just kind of neat to see this whole thing take shape.
Excellent. Well, Craig and Melissa, thank you for joining us.
Sure.
Craig, can you give us, and I know we have it running at the bottom of the screen, but give us that website address if you can, just one more time.
Oh, it's super long. I would just
Boys
go
and
with
Girls-
Google.
So Google Boys and Girls Club of Washington County.
Yeah, you Google that, and if you're looking for the fundraiser page, I would just Google Over the Edge Fundraiser Hagerstown.
Okay, yeah, I think what we have is the actual Boys and Girls Club, because there's something right on the front page that leads you to the Over the Edge.
Yeah, and our webpage is full of our mission and vision in the community, and it's just it's a great page. It's very informative to some of our programs.
Okay, so $40,000 is the goal. Let's beat the goal. Let's not make
right.
the goal. Let's beat the goal. Please log on and join the cause. Up next on the flip side, there is a new hotel proposed, but could there be water problems? I'm sure at least Ron Bowers has an opinion on that one. Stay with us. We're back after this break. Welcome back. So there's a new hotel proposed out near the airport, and Hagerstown City Council, or at least some of the members, are concerned that it may not be a project that meets criteria for an exception to provide water services for. Ron, what can you tell us about this?
It's out off of Breeze Hill Drive, out close to where the headquarters to Erie Insurance is, land that was sold by the Washington County Industrial Foundation for the purpose of building a hotel motel with a potential conference center there. And as is one of the biggest issues that I talk about regularly in the community, is the city council and the city of Hagerstown controls the water network that goes everywhere that needs city water, which is just about everywhere in the county. In this particular case, I don't think it's up to the city to determine whether or not the hotel should be there. I see one councilman said that the hotel should be closer to the city. Well, that's not the city's call on where something should be located. I think that in the plans, water should go to where water's needed and not to what your opinion is of the people or what's going to be located there. So it's one of those issues that sparks controversy, and I can tell you very sincerely, when we did Citibank back in 1983-84, we came within a whisker of losing Citibank over a water issue in that particular area. And it was over PSI, pounds per square inch. So water issues and sewer issues in this community continue to be the division that really runs economic development away.
Henry, we have a pretty good record of filling hotel rooms, even for new hotels that we build. I think probably better than industry standards. Last I heard, I won't quote any numbers because I don't have anything newer than probably 6 months old. But the point is, we do a pretty good job of filling hotel rooms. How is it in our best interest, whether it's a valid exception or not, how is it in our best interest to not approve this for what could likely be a thriving business?
Well, I don't think it's in the community's best interest, and the community is greater than the city of Hagerstown.
And it is, by the way, so in terms of where it is in the airport business park, is that correct?
Yeah, right beside the Citibank, right beside of Erie Insurance, right there on State Line Road, Breeze Hill Drive.
Okay.
Okay, so I mean, it's a few miles outside of city limits, but really, the success of Washington County will also be success for the city of Hagerstown. If we have an infrastructure problem, let's address it.
Yeah.
Okay. I know we have to go and buy a old gas station down there on the Cultural Trail for $130,000, but let's make an investment here for something practical that is going to generate revenue back into the community, because these people are going to patronize our restaurants, they're going to visit our exhibits, they're going to walk on the Cultural Trail. So let's go ahead and put some investment back into our community.
Okay.
And it's next to the Hagerstown Regional Airport, by the way.
Yeah. So this whole notion of a vital versus a non-vital project. What does that all mean, Ron? That's not a term with which I am familiar.
That's a term that the city's using in this particular issue. Again, it's personal opinions, and it shouldn't be driven by personal opinion. It should be dealt with a policy. Once you get you start deviating from policy, and you start interjecting your personal opinion, that's when we get into trouble, and that's what happens on cooperation with water, sewer, and economic development in Washington County. It's been going on for decades.
Okay. The other interesting question was, why is this not being built closer to the city? What are your thoughts on that?
It's not where the land is. Everything doesn't have to be built. That sounds like one particular councilman that would say that, that should be closer to the city. Look at how many hotels and motels there are in and around the city. Again, it's on Interstate 81, right next to the Hagerstown Regional Airport, in an area where there's Ryder Jet that brings in all kind of private consumers or customers or airline folks that need places to stay overnight. It's the perfect place for a hotel.
Well, I would dare them to go up and down 81 and say, okay, show me a site that could be multi-purpose to function potentially as a conference center plus a motel that's along I-81 right now that relies upon city limits to benefit the city. I mean, look at the map. What do we have?
Now,
Many.
Am I correct that this is going to be a La Quinta or La Quinta?
La Quinta, yes.
Is that so? It's not just a Joe's Motel.
No, I think it's got stature. I think the gentleman that's talking about it is dealing with a couple other problem areas in and around the city. People trying to make the Garden Plaza and other things more reputable as time goes, and sometimes that becomes a problem. But they're dealing with it. But to make comments that's been made, I don't think is really reflective of what we should be doing, working together as a city and a county and a state.
So, Henry, in your opinion, does this eventually fly, or is this dead on arrival?
I would like to think that this will fly. Okay. Does it? I don't know. It's going to be up to our city council members to contribute their opinions, and they could be a potential hindrance to economic development in our community. I would hope they wouldn't be, but they have the authority because of being in charge of the water supply. But also go back. We talked probably a year ago about Procter & Gamble, and they needed water, and the water was Maryland's asset, and we had to meet some variance for Procter & Gamble to get that. I don't hear any of this discussion now. We have sufficient water coming out of the Potomac that can be processed and made available. So I don't really know why we have a
Well, it goes into zones. Zone 4, Zone 5, it goes into zones. They say that zone out there really isn't reflective, even though we've had Citibank. And I would point out that Citibank is closing their daycare center, which is a big user of water. They also closed part of their buildings out there, which was big users of water. There's certainly adequate water, and with the Horton Sphere tank that was put in a couple of years ago, the pounds of PSI, pounds per square inch, certainly would be available there. And if it's not to have another place to add to that, the city's looked at over the years, it's time that northern part of the county be dealt with the city, with the county, in coordination with each one.
Ron, in your opinion, does this fly, or is this dead on arrival?
I think it'll fly.
Okay. All right. That's all the time we have on that. Coming up next, we're looking forward to a new school year already, or at least the Washington County Board of Education is, because they've approved a new budget. What's in it? Well, we'll have some details when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Well, the Washington County School Board this week approved a new budget for the upcoming school year. Ron, what do we know about it?
The budget, you know, each year the county has to provide what they call a maintenance of effort. The law requires a maintenance of effort. The county's maintenance of effort that they're supposed to automatically give is $2.5 million. That $2.5 million is a low maintenance of effort as regarded by the state. That the county, yes, they do it, but they don't put in that extra money,
So,
which they
what
feel
you're
that
saying,
they should.
if I understand it, is that according to the state, we should be, as a county, putting in more?
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes. Even though the law says this is what you should do, in the past they've stayed to a maintenance of effort.
Okay, so do we have to put in more? Or is the county within its rights to say, okay, this is the money we're putting in? And I'm not suggesting the county is trying to not fund appropriately education, but for whatever reason, we don't have that money.
The maintenance of effort is the maintenance of effort, and that's all they have to by law put in.
Okay.
But the board is actually asking for greater than, and in the past, the board has done the exact same thing. They know what the maintenance of effort is locally, that the county's going to contribute, but they've asked the county for additional funds. I don't believe it's been approved in the past for a higher level of maintenance of
They
effort.
want $1.9 million more this year.
Okay, so that's what?
It's 3.8, I think.
3.8 overall.
3.8, yes.
Okay.
Now, there's significant discussion in this budget about the notion of adding some additional pre-K activities. And there were one or more of the board members who suggested that the student-to-teacher ratio is not good in some areas, and that sometimes, I think it was Mike Guessford suggested that sometimes the student-to-teacher ratio is 30 to 1. Isn't there some rule around that? Don't we have to deal with that issue as well?
I don't know if there's necessarily a rule. I think there's recommendations of what the proper student-to-teacher ratio is. And, you know, are we accounting that we have teachers' aides also in the classroom when you get a larger class, possibly to help out, or if you have, you know, individuals in the class that require additional attention, you know, they put more staffing into the classroom. So, you know, Mike Espert suggests, he said, was 30 to 1. That seemed, you know, that ratio seems a little bit high in this day and age. You know, I think ideally it would probably be more like, you know, 20 to 1 or 24 to 1 ratio of a teaching certificate.
Well, and it depends on the age of the kids too, right? So the lower the age, the more, you know, I don't know which way it goes, but anyway, it does depend on the age of the children too, correct?
I believe it does have some influence, but, you know, we're talking overall average of what we're looking at. So I would like to think that, you know, we're not gearing for a 30 to 1 ratio because we sort of get away from the point of spending time and educating the kids in the classroom.
I think in this particular issue, we're talking about adding pre-K. We're talking about adding 400 pre-K to the system. And I think Mike's problem is we've already got a problem with the ratio, and he was talking about issues that were severe acknowledged by other people, and also talking about we have a pre-K program that's really elevated, and we talked on this program how the pre-K has really come alive in the school system. Well,
but we've also talked about how our readiness factor has
improved, yes.
And arguably as a result of that pre-K program.
And what I would hate to see is not do what they want, what the board wants. I think Mr. Gaspard's got a valid point, but I don't think he killed the program. And
well, was he
you know,
suggesting to kill the program? No, I didn't read that.
He didn't want to add 400 new positions while they're adding 10 or 20 new instructors. He don't want to add the 400 more kids.
But we may not have the opportunity to say no, because Maryland is pushing for a universal pre-K, which could be another unfunded mandate that the state passes down to the local jurisdiction. and we're struggling at a 30-to-1 ratio. And now we add in universal pre-K for every school in the county, every elementary school in the county to absorb an additional grade. That's a huge burden that we're going to be placing upon the school system.
Well, yeah, but then again, you pointed out something else with teachers' age. There's ways to deal with this. There's the way that you get this done that you will be able to do it. 30-to-1 is not the ratio out into the school system itself. This is the 30-to-1 was discussed about pre-K. 30-to-1 or 40-to-1 sometimes, there's no problem with that. It all depends on the type of teacher that you have. And just because you have 24-to-1, 19-to-1, doesn't make that kid going to get any better education.
Ron, I tell you, if we have a 30 or 40-to-1 teacher-to-student ratio at a pre-K level, the teacher will be herding cats.
Well, sometimes what I'll do, I'll bring an educator that's been on this program before that said she'll take a class any day at 40-to-1 with a good teacher and good instructional material, as to having just somebody that's not a good teacher at 24-to-1. It all depends what you have. It depends on the resources that you use. We get caught up in things just because there's this low teacher ratio that the kids won't learn. How do kids learn in college? There's some huge classes. Yeah. So with modern technology the way it is, we're foolish to be thinking we have to have an 18 or 20-to-1 ratio. Troubled kids in some, I would agree. The overall school system.
Let's talk on that as a last point. I think one of the quotes was that and I'm paraphrasing here, what responsibility does the school system have for managing uncontrollable children from undisciplined homes? That one kind of put me back a little bit. Henry?
Well, and we've talked on and off camera regarding, we have people who are becoming parents who do not necessarily have the faculties to be a good parent.
But hasn't that always been the case?
It's always been the case, but we have more people, we have more burdens, and it's because of social media, it's a whole lot more prevalent now that people are seeing it. And I'm not passing the buck because, it's just another generation. We all like to think that our generation is better than the generation that comes after us. But the burden that we have is we're asking the teachers to step in and pick up roles that we as parents, that our parents did. Uncontrollable kids, they probably lack discipline at home. Some, and not necessarily, some of them may have too much discipline at home. So they're reacting when they're getting into the classroom. So I think we're asking the teachers to go beyond teaching, and now all of a sudden they're becoming a parent in the classroom, and it requires more resources because the kids are sometimes just merely out of control.
Interesting. All right, that's all the time we have on that one. When we come back, it's time for Fast Five. Stay with us. Welcome back. Welcome to Fast Five, where our three panelists talk about 5 topics in 7 short minutes. Let's get started. First of all, income and property tax increases are now proposed in Washington County. Henry, what say you?
I understand the reason why they're being proposed. A lot of it is for mandates being passed down from the state level. And, even one of the comments was in the newspaper article said unfunded mandates because of the Trump tax cut. It's reduced the money coming back in the community. I think, like everything, as a government, we need to be more efficient in how we operate things. We do have infrastructure, but looking at doubling our tax rates, I don't think is the answer to our community.
No, is it doubling?
Ultimately, that was one of the numbers that was put out there. That's the worst case scenario, but even an increase of 25 or 50% of our tax rates, I think is exceptional.
Okay, Ron?
There's a whole host of things that's happening. The income tax is not coming back where it was before for whatever reason, and whether it's tax cuts that's been given on a federal level that we're not getting because of choices people's making, the county's losing revenue on the income tax. As far as the property tax, as long as this community continues to bail out all the 501c3 nonprofits and churches, that they don't put anything into anything,
Oh, wait, what do you mean bail
there's-
out?
they're tax-free.
Okay.
Okay, a major
but that's
portion
not a
of-
state issue or a local issue. They're
It
tax-free
isn't?
because federal.
Doesn't have a thing to do with feds.
501c3.
What community
It doesn't-
charges a 501c3 property
A
tax?
church doesn't pay taxes.
Right.
A 501c3 doesn't pay taxes on their property. Okay?
Okay.
So that means a major portion of the county property tax roll is not taxed, and those people still use the same benefits. Why can't they pay some of the benefits for water?
What
for sewer,
surrounding
and that
community
type?
around us charges their 501c3s and churches property taxes?
Well, it's not my problem. We're talking about here.
I'm just asking.
We're talking about
Yeah,
here.
I think the
We're
point
talking
he's making
about here.
is precedent, which
Well,
and I don't know the
precedent's
answer. to
okay.
I
that.
mean, you're essentially saying 501c3s are now subject to a O'Malley Rain tax because they're unique.
No, that was what you said.
All right.
Okay.
So
Now-
Washington County.
No, I don't
go
want to
ahead.
drop this.
Well, don't drop it then. Let's
Back,
just keep talking.
back with what you're saying, Henry. We're talking about a potential tax increase.
Right.
We're talking about what's happened. You bring a new business in, you give them taxing decreases for property taxes over 10 years. You don't get that property tax for a couple more years. I am saying that we cannot continue to give 501c3s and all of the people that pay zero property taxes continued tax breaks and no contribution towards running the community at all. And we don't. That's what I'm saying needs to be looked at. Do I want to do it? I want to talk about it. It's not off of the table for me to bring it up and have, you can cast whatever you want, but it needs to be talked about.
Okay, so and we need to jump off the subject, but before we do, from a pure where we fall within the state of Maryland, the low tax rate for the state of Maryland is in Worcester County, which is 0.0175. We are at this point at 0.028. And
That's got to be wage tax.
right.
Property tax is a
I'm not
different
talking about
ratio.
I'm not talking about property,
Okay.
but they're talking about income taxes as well.
Okay, yes.
Yes, so for the income piece, and that's a good point, Ron. We're at 0.028, and the highest that I'm seeing, there's several that are 0.320, like Prince George's, Queen Anne's, or Somerset County, which I was quite surprised by, and Baltimore City, of course. That's not surprising. So we're certainly not at the low end. Garrett County is 0.265. Allegheny County is actually 0.0305. So they're higher than us. So it's interesting to me looking at where we are in terms of the
But
rest
for
of the
any of that
counties.
to change, because we do not have self-governance in this county, it has to run through Annapolis.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay, so even if Washington County puts an additional sales tax in of another %, or we want to change our property tax rates, or we want to change the money coming back off of payroll taxes, it all
Okay.
has to go through Annapolis, which means there's almost a year before we.
Well, we have a lot of authority now that's there that we can do that's
Executive
why they're
order?
talking about. No, it's not executive order, but it's something to talk. I'm throwing stuff out on the table. People's going to start raising Cain. You get great attendances when you start talking about who's not paying taxes. That bothers me, the people that don't pay taxes in this community. At one time, there was a major part of land that was not taxed. And they still use the roads, they still use every service and don't contribute towards it.
And they pay payroll taxes in the community and spend money in our community.
Okay. Hogan.
So should everybody then not pay?
I think Jim wants to move on.
Yeah,
We'll
say
take
that
we'll
at the
take a
last
longer
minute.
segment maybe next
I'll
week.
use that at thumbs up and thumbs down.
Okay. Hogan to Amazon. Call me. We're still here. Ron, is there any chance that Amazon is coming back, is going to reconsider Maryland?
I never thought there was a chance they'd leave New York, but they did. Is there
Yeah.
a chance that they could go back someplace else? Nobody thought they'd go to Nashville,
That's
and
true.
they did. So it's Hogan's got a good point. He's a gamer. He's made his calls. nothing ventured, nothing gained. At least he's went out, made the phone calls to Amazon, to Jeff Bezos down at the Washington Post and Amazon, and maybe they'll reconsider.
If you don't ask, you're not going to get anything
That's
for
right.
sure, right, Henry?
I think I don't think we stand a chance of it relocating here. It's fine for him to make the ask, but it's actually a boondoggle when you start to put everything together. I think it's going to cost us more than we're going to get in return.
All right. Herald Mail has announced the launching of a new website that focuses on the positive side of the news. It's called the HM Brightside. Ron, what say you?
I would like to see the HM Brightside have at least 1 page or 2 pages in every day's paper to show that stuff, and not just go to a .com on a computer. There's a lot of people that don't use computers. I think it's a great idea, but let 1 or 2, 1 full page of the paper, and I'm talking a full
Brightside.
page, both sides of 1 page.
The bright side.
To be the bright side.
Kind of like the flip side, only different.
No, on the bright side.
Could be.
On the bright side.
As far as my opinion, good news. The newspaper does print good news. Unfortunately, it doesn't make the upper fold of the front page normally. I think they do an admirable job. The fact that it is in a .com where a lot of the readership for the newspaper is an effective cost deployment. But, kumbaya, good news, let's just incorporate it into the regular newspaper. I don't know if it's going to change my reading habits or not.
All right. Bad news. Eggs are now bad for you. Yesterday they were okay, but there's a new study. Eggs are bad for you. Ron, what say you?
It still gets out to, they can't make up their mind what's good and what's bad, because in the same article it talks about now the little bear, 81 milligram
70 or
bear
80
aspirin.
milligram aspirin.
The bear aspirin's not good for you
Right.
taking. Then the eggs is not good for you, and then somebody will do a study that coffee's not good, and then 2-3 years later it's all
Coffee's
great again.
Yep. Wine's great.
Yeah,
no,
wine's
not
great.
great. Grapes are great.
You know, at the end of your life, you're going to die, regardless of what you consume.
Right. Okay, Henry?
I think we're just grasping at straws. We don't know what's good, what's bad from one day to the next. So go ahead and serve me my eggs, serve me my bacon, give me some white bread toast. I can smear some strawberry preserves on it, and I'm a happy camper.
All right.
How about you, Jim?
Well, I'm an egg fan, and I have recently actually started to eat more eggs, so I'm troubled by this news. There is a second jury that has now found against Bayer Corporation, the drug manufacturer, and specifically in the Roundup case. Roundup causes cancer. That, we saw the advertisements where you spray it on and it doesn't hurt the environment and it doesn't hurt the grass, it just kills the weeds. Well, that apparently is not the case. It theoretically, according to these juries, is causing cancer. Henry, what say you?
Well, France started this and discovered that ingredients in Roundup cause cancer. Last year, I lost a family member who was an avid user of Roundup to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and so it's a personal thing to me. And I think the science is there that can support it, that it does cause cancer. The juries were presented with the facts. They found significant fault at Monsanto / Bayer, which owns Monsanto now. So, I'm sure they were presented with the case and they made their judgment off the facts presented.
Ron?
Well, Roundup was always a good thing to get rid of the weeds in the walkway and around your stones, and whoever would think a weed could grow up between concrete, but it does.
Yes, it does.
It finds a way to get it, but the old Roundup gets away, and
So you're still a user?
just read it today.
Oh, okay.
I haven't used it for 18 years.
You haven't?
No.
Very good.
I have a bottle in my garage closet, but it is unopened and has been unopened for 5 years since I read my first article suggesting it was not a good thing to do. So, okay, next up, thumbs up, thumbs down. Join us then. Welcome to Thumbs Up and Thumbs Down, where our panelists get to talk about what's on their mind in terms of positives and negatives for the week. Henry, let's start with you.
I'm going to give a thumbs down to the Maryland State Police officer who's sitting along I-81 in the dark at night. I was coming home last evening. He caught a car that's about a mile north of where the construction ends, caught a car speeding. He immediately pulled out in front of a tractor trailer, which forced him to slam his brakes on down to 40 miles an hour. Car in front of me, behind the tractor trailer, they hit theirs, I hit mine, proceeded to cascade down. And then he turns his lights on to pull the vehicle over. Well, of course, everyone in the slow lane, this vehicle gets over, and everyone in the slow lane is now slamming their brakes on. He's creating a hazard to issue a ticket when, yes, the driver was speeding. I'm sure that there was a valid point with that, but he created a safety hazard on the road. I have all the respect in the world for the people who protect and serve us in our community and the Maryland State Police officers, but when they become a hazard on the road to people on the highway, I think something needs to be addressed.
All right. Ron?
I'm going to give a potential thumbs up to Citibank. Citibank just announced the closing of their daycare center. I would hope that Citibank worked locally with what can be done with that Citibank building, as they've done with the PREIT, Pittsburgh Real Estate Investment Trust at the Valley Mall, to figure out a new use for that daycare center, because we're always needing different things in the community. And I think now would be the time to approach Citibank for something that could be done in the community, positive, with that large daycare center that they have that was down to only 27% use.
So you're giving an in advance thumbs up?
Because I think if Citibank were approached, I think they would work. Because I was on the Board of Commissioners that dealt with that daycare center, that dealt with the 3 buildings of Citibank, and I think there's a lot that can be done there.
Okay.
My thumbs down is to the report that was given yesterday, which it was on TV, of the head of the Washington County Industrial Foundation, Greg Snook, to the county commissioners. There is no one that's currently being charged to go in the Mount Etna Technology Park. There's nothing happening there. There's no report of anything. And there was quite a concern about nothing happening after all these years. And again, I should say that I really think with JGBLI going to South Korea again, that the Washington County Industrial Foundation should be picking up that $68,000. And since they're running a technology park, go to one of the top technology countries in the world, South Korea, to help bring somebody back. I just think we're losing an awful lot of time and money and investment into that Yale Drive area, and we're getting no results.
So my thumbs up for the week is along the same lines as your thumbs down, except I'm giving a thumbs up because the Herald Mail printed an article on Wednesday night that basically said that Washington County is going to move forward with the Professional Boulevard Bridge, which I think is a really good thing. So congratulations on that one. My thumbs down is the fact that also in the paper on Wednesday, Maryland General Assembly gave a final okay to the $15 minimum wage that will be potentially going into effect by 2025, up from 1010. I think anybody that's watched this show previously knows how I feel about the minimum wage, and you and I differ on this one, Ron.
Yeah, but tell the whole story.
What's the whole story?
About the 14 employees.
The 14 employees.
14 employees and under will phased in a year or two later.
Okay. Well, regardless, it's $15 an hour minimum wage. I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see additional automation. I think we're going to see job loss because of this. But that's my opinion, and time will tell whether I'm right or wrong. That's all the time we have for tonight. We hope you will like us on Facebook. We hope you will follow us on Twitter. We hope you will send us your comments, suggestions, and general information to feedback@flipsidetv.com. That's feedback@flipsidetv.com. Most importantly, we hope you will join us again next week for another episode of The Flip Side. Good night.